On one strange night every year, millions of mummies suddenly appear as if ancient Egypt had emptied all its tombs into the streets of our towns and cities. Rugrats in rags bang on doors, demanding processed sugar, threatening otherwise to egg our houses and make mummies of our shrubs and trees. It is a bizarre ritual, but one deeply ingrained into holiday traditions. For what could be more natural than the pairing of mummies with Halloween? And yet history hides a dark secret that everyone needs to know. Why did mummies arrive so late to our Halloween party? A century ago, the Book of Halloween by Ruth Kelly was the definitive history of the holiday. It was, in fact, the first book-length treatment of the subject. She naturally writes of witches, ghosts, vampires, dragons, devils, and skeletons, but not a single word about mummies. Where were these walking undead of hallowed antiquity, so often dredged from bat-filled catacombs and steeped in mystery and magic? How could Halloween as we know it exist without them? Look at these magazine ads from the 1950s. The kids have come to their Halloween parties dressed as cowboys, crooks, pirates, spacemen, clowns, witches, devils, ghosts, skeletons, even a rabbit and a leopard, but not one mummy anywhere. Meanwhile, their moms and dads went to costume parties featuring not jello treats and bubble gum, but bubbly and beer. The adults dress up as devils, firemen, cats, and cops, but no mummies among them. There's even an ad-friendly Prince Schlitz Charming and Little Bo Schlitz Peep, but alas, no Schlitz mummy. In my younger years, trick-or-treaters could choose from lots of ready-made plastic masks that represented a mass-produced but mummy-free Halloween, dominated by the usual cast of characters from cute to creepy, but nothing from the crypts of ancient Egypt. In the 1950s, mummy costumes were so rare they were given prizes for being the most novel, original, or unique. Newspapers from coast to coast called attention to these unexpected entries, proving that just a few decades ago Egyptian mummies had no hold whatever on Halloween. They were as uncommon at costume parties as a penguin, turkey, milk bottle, cornstalk, ostrich, or Christmas tree. In this newspaper story, a mummy is listed among those most unusual characters chosen for a costume parade. Fast forward to today, and mummies have become a multi-million-dollar marketing obsession. That knock on your door might be answered with all sorts of mummy treats for kids in mummy costumes. The cannibalistic undertones are bizarre, mummies munching other mummies. And then there's the other merchandise, decorations, dolls, wind-up toys, and more. Respect for Egypt sold separately. Halloween today is simply unimaginable without mummies. Kids get treated to Halloween mummy guides with puzzles and costume ideas. Of course, there has to be a mummy in the word search. Right there. And can you possibly guess what this might be when you connect all the dots? Here, let me give you some help. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Any good Egyptologist will tell you that mummies were not made for Halloween. It just seems that way today. Our holiday celebrates the dead, after all, and mummies are just some dry skin and dusty wrappings away from those original Halloween standard bearers, skeletons, and ghosts. But again, I must ask you, where were these mummies 100 Halloweens ago? What kept them away for so long? We start with a surprising fact. Over the past century or so, mummies have changed. A lot. That's your great-grandma's idea of a mummy on the left, with a 4,000-year-old Egyptian face as fresh as the day she died. Her secret? Palmolive beauty soap. And that's your idea of a mummy on the right, not aging nearly as well. Halloween had no use for her. Halloween was waiting for him. For a long time, mummies in the modern imagination were just too beautiful, witty, and delightful to haunt anyone at Halloween. For example, the 1845 magazine story, Mr. Grubb's Night with Memnon, gives us the adventures of a dull old pedant who finds himself locked inside a museum where all the Egyptian antiquities come to life after dark. Sounds like a great movie plot, doesn't it? Well, anyway, the amused Mr. Grubb joins the revels and dances with the reanimated mummy of a fair young daughter of the Nile with soft, downy cheeks, roguish, kissable lips, and supernaturally sparkling eyes. There are certainly some very creepy looking creatures in this illustration, but the mummy is not one of them. That's why the earliest association of mummies with Halloween had nothing to do with scary monsters. It was about bringing the Palmolive beauty ad to life. In 1898, newspapers reported the latest fad in photography, featuring rich socialites dressing up and posing with a mummy's coffin. The idea was to hand out these photos at Halloween, shocking your suitors and admirers with loveliness and poise beyond the reach of death. The reporter noted some skepticism, however. Many people think that the idea is too morbid to be encouraged, he wrote. The mummy case is too suggestive of a coffin to be entirely pleasant. However, this weird fancy is desirable at present, and for its little day the mummy picture promises to be a popular fad. Not only not scary, many mummies were considered quite sexy. In 1907, the Moulin Rouge in Paris staged a pantomime in which a young female mummy comes to life and seductively unwinds her wrappings, and then passionately kisses, not kills as today, the archaeologist who had awakened her. The show caused a riot because it starred a member of the French aristocracy and because both of the kissing actors were women, forcing the abrupt cancellation of the show to the delight of this Midwestern American newspaper, which called the act as disgustingly indecent as anything ever seen on the Parisian stage. Meanwhile, Great-Grandma could see a scandalous mummy of her own in the first of many movies titled simply The Mummy, this one released in 1911. The film does not survive, but the trade magazine Motion Picture World describes the film in this way. While the mummy is in Jack's room, a live electric wire is by accident brought in contact with it. The body has been so perfectly mummified that the electric current is all that is necessary to ignite the vital spark, and Jack is amazed to see dancing forth from the case which he thought contained only unattractive rags and bones, a beautiful Egyptian princess. As soon as she is released, the mummy makes violent love to Jack and causes his sweetheart to quarrel with him. But don't worry, Jack patches things up with his sweetheart and they do get married. And then his new father-in-law marries the lusty 4,000-year-old mummy. In 1918, the popular love song Mummy Mine played upon the same themes with yet another youthful mummy rising from her coffin. The lyrics lay it on pretty thick. I have waited through the years just sighing, oh, can't you hear me again crying, waiting, your love no more denying, my love, my love, my love. My gosh, kiss her already. But it makes you wonder how this became this. It began with a teenager's tomb and then accelerated into a mad and monstrous dash through 20th century film and pulp fiction. The teenager's name was Tut. In November 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter and his wealthy patron Lord Carnarvon uncovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings near Luxor. It was an event that mesmerized the world. Headlines doted on the wondrous beauty and splendor of the finds. The rich and famous flocked to the site to view its treasures, while everyone else followed the story through newspapers and newsreels. Within weeks, people were recording happy songs like these two about the discovery of old King Tut. Yes, old King Tut, the wise old nut, not the boy king, because people had no idea yet about his age. They assumed a pharaoh must be someone old. Even so, he was imagined to be vibrant and young at heart, something of a lecherous playboy surrounded by young women, smoking cigars and drinking wine. Here's a taste of the lyrics. Now old King Tut was just a nut. He ruled for many years. In old King Tutankhamun's day, 1,000 girls would dance each day with lots of hip, hip, hip hooray. Yes, old King Tut was an immediate pop culture icon. Movie producers, too, raced far ahead of the archaeology to star him in a film before anyone even saw his mummy for the first time in 1926. Here, for example, is an October 1923 press release of a now lost silent melodrama titled The Dancer of the Nile. It co-stars the British actor Bertram Graspy as the young Prince Tut. The plot imagined his racy love life before he became the old pharaoh everyone expected to find inside the sarcophagus. The early songs and movies portray the living Tut, not the mummy of Tut, and so did Halloween. Tut's tomb was an immediate holiday hit, but his mummy was conspicuously absent. During the very first Halloween following the discovery of the tomb, King Tut parties were celebrated across America. In Bismarck, North Dakota, for example, kids dressed as the ghosts of many famous persons. Nero, Alexander the Great, Lot's wife, Helen of Troy, Bluebeard the pirate, Mary Queen of Scots, and even Cleopatra. But not one King Tut as man or mummy at the King Tut Halloween party. In Richfield, Utah, there were jack-o'-lanterns, black cats, witches on broomsticks, and a visit to the tomb of King Tut. But, again, no mummies. In Helena, Montana, children celebrated the tomb of King Tut Halloween. They dressed as King Arthur, Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and some as Egyptian princesses, but notably again, none as King Tut. And even when a King Tut with a Queen Tut too did show up at one of these parties, it was not as a mummy. Here the king and queen were entertained by a dancer reminiscent of the ones mentioned in the King Tut song and the film The Dancer of the Nile. The event is described as hilarious, not spooky. 100 years ago, King Tut's tomb brought an exotic, over-the-top Egypt into America's Halloween. But this was still an Egypt whose mummies could be seen as charming, articulate, beautiful, fun-loving, even lusty. It took the eventual unboxing of Pharaoh Tutankhamun himself to dispel once and for all this popular image of attractively preserved, desirable Egyptian corpses. When finally revealed to the world in 1926, old King Tut turned out to be a teenager, the now famous Boy King, but with a body that put an end to Palmolive's Beauty's Secret Mummy campaign. The actual face behind the golden mask changed everything. Some people may have seen a real mummy before, but the long-awaited Tut took the whole world by storm. So when Tut's tomb finally brought Tut himself to the party as a real mummy rather than an imagined man, Halloween said goodbye to fun and high fashion and hello to a darker fantasy, a fantasy fed by another key element of the King Tut story, his supposed curse. What King Tut started, film and pulp fiction perfected. Magazines gave their readers lecherous mummies on a misogynistic rampage. The tables were turned. Where once old Mr. Grubb danced with a beautiful mummy, and infatuated young archaeologists fell in love or lust with reanimated charmers of the Nile, now the mummies preyed upon beautiful women. There had been a few accursed, ugly, angry mummies before Tut, but his face and the false rumors of a curse on his discoverers finally brought mummies to the party of Halloween monsters. In the decades after Tut, the embalmed dead of ancient Egypt were absorbed into the big screen looniverse of monsters ranging from Frankenstein and Dracula to Godzilla, the Wolfman, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. The standard was set in 1932 with the release of Universal's The Mummy, portrayed by Boris Karloff. Thereafter, a train of movies featured what seemed to be the same maladjusted mummy on an endless loop of leg-dragging terror, with women as their target. Lobby posters screamed the horrible news. It comes to life, half bone, half bandage, and all blood-curdling horror, torn from the tomb to terrify the world, and so on. Halloween finally had the frightening mummies that the holiday always needed, not those benign and beautiful love interests that had dominated the scene before King Tut came along. It may be a surprise that mummies took so long to become synonymous with our Halloween celebrations, but it is no longer a mystery now that we have put the whole matter into historical perspective. So go ahead and join the mummy invasion now scheduled every year for All Hallows Eve. But when you look around, remember that it took our overwrought imaginations a very long time to make Egyptian mummies a mainstay of our Halloween. And that's a wrap. I'm Dr. Frank L. Holt, your host on this channel about my ancient world. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this content with others. And of course, happy Halloween.